website www.niceradio.info, or you can email us at bdsnice@gmail.com, or simply give us a call at 784-456-5967. Remember, it's Keeping It Real, the interactive talk show program heard each and every Friday only on Nice Radio.
Central Kingstown, it's that time again. Get ready to turn up the vibe because the Green Hill Fair of the Year is back. It's all happening on Whit Monday, June 9th, live on the Green Hill Hardcourt. It's all courtesy of Major Sinclair Leacock and the Central Kingstown NDP crew. There will be sweet stalls and sweet treats, the barbecue blazing, the drinks cold and flowing all day long. We've got face painting for the kids, and for the grown folks, domino action, card games, punchbowl, and plenty more. But wait, there's a twist. This year, you get to help pick the best 2025 election song. We'll be spinning all the baddest campaign bangers, so bring your vibes and cast your pick. Plus, we're giving you a sneak peek into the Calypso tent featuring Zion I, Patches, and more. So come out and keep Central Kingstown solid as a rock, strong, united, and ready for victory. And hey, if you have yellow or green lime, bring them come, because we're squeezing all kind of fun out of this Whit Monday.
No matter where you are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, your radio is not.
Jean-Jacques Dessalines, gone. Many of the Maroons, gone. Marcus Garvey, gone. Malcolm X, gone. Harriet Tubman, gone. Frederick Douglass, gone. Jose Marti, gone. They lit fires in the night. They gave their flesh, they paid the price. But we still march in stolen chains. If we forget, it's us to blame. So let the wind across the land call their names with lifted hands. Let Trio Ray know he's not alone. Let the blood of prophets make him strong. God protects not all red, let no shadows fear his glory. From beloved, that's what it is to me. Less than faith protects us.
No matter where you are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, your radio is Nice Radio. 101.3, 96.7, 90.3 FM.
Now we have 40,000 vehicles. Our traffic officers, the human beings, cannot be everywhere. We need to implement the greater use of technology on our roadways, cameras, other devices to monitor the use of our roadways. And we need the supporting legislation. So if our cameras snap you, take a photo of you speeding on our roadway, we should be able to use that image to have that matter taken before the courts and prosecuted, and where appropriate, drivers being sentenced accordingly, whether that's a fine or otherwise. One of the things is that a driver may dispute that he has been speeding on our roads. Do we have the appropriate technology in our hands to determine the rates at which a driver is moving along our roadway? Again, enhanced technology where we are able to assess the speed at which someone is moving along our roadway would assist. There's the issue, and oftentimes in our minivans, where persons argue that the music is played at an excessive volume. It's very loud. But again, that depends on the individual to make an assessment.
Good evening, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is Keeping It Real once again on the air. We are a little bit early today because of circumstances, but we are here to enlighten you, inform you, and educate you. So wherever you may be, every nook and cranny, every dog hole, foxhole, crab hole, snake hole, whichever water watching the house that you are on a Friday evening, as usual. Keeping it real is on the air. So exhale all the carbon dioxide and monoxide and all the oxide that is not good for you. And take a deep inhalation of oxygen so that you'll be all ready to take in this program. And remember, it's an interactive program. So when the lines are open, all we ask you is to keep it real, keep it civil, nothing libelous, scandalous, rumor mongering, just honest and straightforward. Because we don't want any problem for the station and for you and for us. So, Community Trail is on the air. Now, I was listening to the news on Wednesday night. The Prime Minister came on and he was talking about Californians need to be aware of their lyrics and what they are singing, because they are bordering, some of them, on libelous and scandalous thing, and he not gonna take it that easy. So he is forewarning them to ensure that, because he said he already have 2 Californians who are claiming that he corrupt and all these sort of things. And he said there's a couple of Calypsonians also who sing praising him, and they are good. So if you don't sing his praise, that means that your song are not good. And I want to know, who gave the Prime Minister that authority? Since way back, he and the man age had a showdown. When he tell the man age that he can sing on a number of other issues, because they critique him and his government and the policies that they were putting intention to. They say that all them politicians smoking too. I see that all the Californians, them, when they smoke the ganja and so, they sing all kind of nonsense. So he has been derogative to persons and in the art form and so. And this year is a bumper year because so far there's about 14 to 15 Calypsonians that is singing song that is anti-government. Some very pertinent and hitting to the point. And I guess he can be like Mitchell, because they call Mitchell Mr. Nancy, and he said that's all he could sing. Calypsonian can sing. He don't have to ban them or stop them from singing. But this one is so thin skin that he want to bludgeon you if you get out of line, pussy. And don't take it as the art form of what it is. He would go into parliament and he would ridicule and pull down people and call them all sort of things. But now it's a calypso season. And Calypsonians are having a field day with him. He is annoyed because it can upset his apple cart because the election isn't too far away because Pat don't break on him. Yes. Pat break on him. And he have the dead cat hovering over him is a speed. So he now is trying to scramble and see how much he can recover with all kind of bravery and all these sort of things that they are doing. Seeing we planting, taking farmers' produce and they paying farmers. And these are some of the issues that is of regular thing. The farmers and the vendors are crying out because when you give away all these planting, some of the persons that who get it are now turn wrong and are selling. Let me tell you how terrible the economy is. And then also, I heard this inclusion Prime Minister and Minister of Labor see how they're going to be reducing VAT, they're going to be reducing income tax, they are creating other incentives for their people so that they can eat healthy, live healthy, and get a bit more money in their hands. And that will help to swing the economy. They also have reduced on the airport service charge to boost tourism. Now, what are we getting here? Plus, they got, I think it's either 10 or 12% increase of salary last year. So, we'll wait and see because I expect him to mention it in the independence speech. Because it will be his last independence speech. Because I'm of the opinion, according to the manage, he have gone through. You who say that you wanted term limit, but now you don't want to leave office, you want to die in office. All the persons in your party refuse to tell you that, you're gone through. You need to step aside and let younger persons take over. But in any case, you said that you are the youngest in your party. So that is a dastard insult to Roboto and your son and Curtis King and all of them. So now, so the silly season is on. And hopefully things may change based on the signs that we are seeing. And persons are being much more vocal with the issues. Here it is. We also see where Donald Trump is saying that he is not gonna give any vaccine mandate, and this thing that they are pushing with COVID, they are all lied. So he is standing up for the average person, and this COVID thing that they are pushing, because they say there is a new strain, and it is much more vibrant than the last one. So these are the issues that I think. There are also the situation with the roads. The rainy season has started, and you are trying in hellbent to repair and fix and start a lot of roads. And colas and water don't mix. So you don't see that whereby the colas can start to bubble when the water gets underneath. So I don't know how you expect to finish all these roads that you have School will soon be closed. We have another 3 weeks. By the 27th of June, that will be end. And you will have the children off on summer break. Then you'll soon find out the result of CPEA, on which school that these children are going to and what. But what I would like to see is a change in the whole curriculum and start to make the children much more creative. The arts, the technical aspect, and those things. And we need to start teaching them from the kindergarten. The chalk and board need to be put aside. It should be minimal that yes, they could read and write and do some maths and so on, but the focus should be on skill, because we once had a lot of skilled workmen in this country, but they have gone up to the islands in Tortola, Antigua, Barbados, Trinidad, and we don't have the sort of skill set here anymore. So I'll be very short on tonight. Farmers are crying out still concerning the feeder road and access to the land. Also seeing the labor can't get workers to work. So I don't know. And then the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Labor, and Rural Development. Every morning is some kind of new idea that he is coming with to fool people. But some people are asking questions about the bananas that they had promised to bring back. St. Lucia exporting bananas, Dominica exporting bananas, but we who were once top in the region for bananas, we can't have export 3 bucks of banana. So that is the dilemma that farmers are facing. And now the rainy season starts, the weeds and grass is all competing the farmers. So they want to know how they're gonna be able to address this situation. I will hold it for now.
Since I didn't learn in school, you see, I was told 1 + 1 is 2, but wasn't told what to do when life doesn't add up for you. They told me that A is for apple and B is for ball, but they never said that A could also stand for anxiety, and sometimes B can be battles you can't tell anyone at all. They made us cram definitions like robot, but forgot to teach us how to manage our thoughts. They taught us how to find X, but not how to find ourselves. They told us that triangles have 3 sides, but never told us what to do when we feel empty inside. They taught me how to spell success, but not how to handle the mental stress that comes with it. They said pass your exams and you go far, but forgot to add that sometimes it is who you know that takes.
No matter where you are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, your radio is Nice Radio. 101.3, 96.7, 90.3 FM.
Keeping It Real is an interactive radio program heard only on Nice Radio. Join your host, Joel Abraham, every Friday as we discuss important issues affecting our society from 8 to 10:30 p.m. For persons living outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you can still listen to us on Nice Radio's website, www.niceradio.info, or you can email us at bdsnice@gmail.com, or simply give us a call at 784 456 5967. Remember, it's Keeping It Real, the interactive talk show program heard each and every Friday only on Nice Radio.
Central Kingstown, it's that time again. Get ready to turn up the vibe because the Green Hill Fair of the Year is back. It's all happening on Whit Monday, June 9th, live on the Green Hill Hardcourt. It's all courtesy of Major Sinclair Leacock and the Central Kingstown NDP crew. There will be sweet stalls and sweet treats, the barbecue blazing, the drinks cold and flowing all day long. We've got face painting for the kids and for the grown folks, domino action, card games, punchbowl, and plenty more. But wait, there's a twist. This year, you get to help pick the best 2025 election song. We'll be spinning all the baddest campaign bangers. So bring your vibes and cast your pit. Plus, we're giving you a sneak peek into the Calypso tent featuring Zion I, Patches, and more. So come out and keep Central Kingstown solid as a rock, strong, united, and ready for victory. And hey, if you have yellow or green lime, bring them come because we're squeezing all kind of fun out of this Whit Monday.
Pleasant good evening. And like Odette Boyer indicated before, we are in early tonight because you will be listening some calypsos from overseas around 9 or 9:30 or so. So that is why we are in early tonight. And I'm going to try my best to be short, and everybody we are asking to do likewise because the time also is short. I will ask a question in tongue sometime this week, and I'm going to try to adjust it for maybe the last time. I hope we won't have to go over it again. The Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is supreme. When I say supreme, it stands over every other things, whether the parliament, the executive, or the judiciary. St. Vincent and the Grenadines constitution, like other Commonwealth constitution, is supreme over the parliament and any other organs of the state. And that is reflected in Section 37 of the Constitution. Section 37 of the Constitution states that Parliament has the authority to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But the power of Parliament to make laws are subjected to the Constitution. And that is not confusing. Parliament can only make laws using the guideline, the Constitution as the guideline to make or to amend laws. So the Parliament cannot move away from the Constitution in making any law. If Parliament does that, then the Parliament is in breach of the Constitution and can be challenged in a court of law. And the court ought to deem that particular provision or the section or the amendment of the law that are suggested by Parliament as unconstitutional, meaning that is not in keeping with what is in our Constitution. So the Constitution, therefore, is higher than any law. Any law that the Parliament decides to pass, the Constitution is higher. So Parliament, in making laws or amending laws, must be guided by the principles of the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this is what Section 101 states of the Constitution of St. Vincent. And this Constitution is the supreme law of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and subject to the provisions of this Constitution, if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, the Constitution shall prevail, and any other law, to the extent of the inconsistency, shall be void. So any law or laws that is not in keeping with the Constitution is illegal, bad law, and should not be upheld. So the supremacy of the Constitution is the fundamental foundation of the legal system in the Commonwealth Caribbean. Two of the most important aspects of the supremacy of the Constitution are the separation of powers and the remedies. So the judiciary ought at all times to be independent of the executive and the parliament. The judiciary or the court, let me use it simple, the court at all times must be independent of the members and parliament itself and the cabinet and the executive itself, because they are there to safeguard the rights of all of us as enshrined in the Constitution. They ought, in any case, to have what they call judicial remedy or legal remedies. So if the parliament, for instance, as we were debating for years, the vaccine mandate law, most of us believe that is unconstitutional. And that is why it was challenged in a court of law. And the court so ruled that it was unconstitutional when the parliament passed those laws or those particular provisions. The court ruled that it was unconstitutional, and that is why the court decided that that particular law or that amendment or those amendments were in breach of the citizens' constitutional rights, and the court basically knocked it down. In layman language, the basic court basically knocked it down and indicated that the laws that the parliament passed to prevent persons from entering the workplace, blah, 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 you remember the story? The court indicated that those laws are illegal. You remember the case with Lizette King, when they deport her and then came back and charged her. The court indicated those actions are illegal and were a breach of constitutional rights. You remember those protesters who were protesting peacefully and they were locked up and charged. The court, in its wisdom, indicated that the charges and those arrests were unconstitutional and illegal. My only thing is that I think sometimes the court need to go further. But maybe an individual may have to do that in suing the state for illegal detention or illegal arrest. It may take a while, but the court, you can do that if your constitutional rights are being infringed on. And I must indicate to you that yes, police have a right to lock you up or detain you if you are in breach of any provision of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But let me just put it in this way. Once you are in right standing with the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and any officer decide to arrest you, that officer, through the Attorney General, can be sued. And the court ought to give you the necessary remedies for violation of your rights. The basic principle of separation of powers is the foundational separation between the different arms of government, and I indicated that to you earlier on. So the executive ought to be, the parliament, sorry, ought to be independent of the executive, and the executive ought to be independent. The judiciary ought to be independent of the legislature. So these three branches of power all have to or ought to operate independently of each other. I know that may sound good in theory because the parliament and the executive is one and the same in most of the cases, because the majority of the members who are returned on after election is called, they form government. And in few cases, in constitutional cases and cases of no confidence, if you have a small majority where the government requires a two-thirds to get those legislation passed, in most of the time, the executive prevails in terms of what they walked over with from the cabinet, which is the executive. So in few cases where on matters of constitutional amendment, and that is a ticklish one because I have to deal with that at some other time. Constitutional amendment and no confidence motion, the backbenchers, and I say backbenchers, the senators on the government side, and also the senators on the opposition side, they ought not to. And remember, they ought not to because they ought not to vote on those issues because they out the league. Only elected members, only 15 of them, ought to vote on issue of constitutional amendment and no confidence motion. So there are three branches and all of them are separated. It signified the autonomy of each branches. So all of them have their own functions. All of them are separate and somewhat independent of the other arms in the respective functions. So the executive or the cabinet proposed, in most cases, laws. Well, in almost every cases, because if the opposition want to do that, they have to get permission or government minister, basically, as they say it in other countries, sponsoring that particular provision. But in the business of the Grandy, I don't think I will ever see that in my lifetime. So basically the cabinet, which is the executive, they propose laws and other things. The parliament, through all the readings and voting and thing, they basically agree whether or not those laws ought to be passed. It is sent to by the Governor General, placed in the Gazette, and then that particular provision in Parliament becomes the law of the land until it is challenged. Because even the parliamentarians themselves, sometimes they are not au fait with the laws. Even the chief legal advisor, the attorney general, are not au fait with the laws. So from time to time, they may pass a piece of law or a law that is bad, and I say bad, unconstitutional, and therefore it may be challenged in court, and that particular provision may be overturned. And I came to mind the dollar tax when it was challenged on the issue of discriminatory provision, and then you remember what the government did. Some old lady spoke to them and they removed it because they had no chance. Well, let me change that. They ought to have no chance in succeeding in a court of law. And that is why I believe in the wisdom or lack thereof, they change the law. So when you went to court the Monday, there was a new document indicating that that particular provision was removed from the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines because that in itself was bad. I remember another incident where the Attorney General voted in the House of Parliament when the Attorney General ought not to vote, being a public servant Attorney General. And I am of the opinion that that matter should have gone to the court. And I tell you why I think it should have gone to the court, because the law states that if an individual voted in the House that ought not to, there's a penalty for voting in the House. And this is the chief legal advisor at the time, in 2011, I think, 2010, did not know that being a public servant Attorney General ought not to vote. So that is a story for another time and another place. But I think I will stay there and continue that part for tonight because I wouldn't finish. So let me just do the final thing as I promised to do. And I'm going to deal, last week I dealt with spoiled ballot and some other provisions in the RPA. Tonight I'm going to deal with rejected ballot. Somebody sent something to me from Canada, but I was trying to verify it, so I will put that on hold until next week or spare our life. A rejected ballot paper. And I'm reading from section 40 of the RP, the representation of the House of Assembly election rules. A rejected ballot paper. This is a ballot paper which does not bear the official mark. You see why I was so adamant that Game should have been charged for breach of the electoral laws and be prosecuted. And I know, based on the law, that he would have been found guilty because he admitted that those 300, I think it's 21 ballots that were counted did not bear the official mark, so that all of those ought to be rejected. And all the dotishness you heard around those times, that even though if it were rejected, this person would have still came out victorious. That is not the issue. The issue is a law were broken, electoral law were broken, and it ought not to be. And if an electoral law were broken, somebody ought to pay for breach or violation of those laws. So remember that. A ballot paper which does not bear the official mark. One which are given for more than one candidate. So if you decide to go into the polling station and decide to vote for Poya and myself, because both name on the ballot paper, and you decide to put an X or cross to both names, that ballot paper ought to be rejected. One which are marked with one which anything is written on or marked by which the voter can be identified. You know, like if Poya decide to put his name in the box, that is a rejected ballot. Which is unmarked or wholly void for uncertainty. over the years observed. And sometimes it's a very tricky thing because you may have the individual not putting the X or the cross in the box, but you can clearly identify who that person, that individual is voting for. And therefore, you'll find that presiding officer in the preliminary count reject that ballot, on the final count, that rejected ballot is included in the final tally. And you want to know how the night before we have 20 for Poya and the next day we have 21, because the presiding officer, in her wisdom or luck thereof, or his wisdom or luck thereof, decide to declare that ballot as a rejected ballot. And after challenge, in particular the ballot paper, because you can clearly know the person the individual wanted to vote for, so that can be overturned in the final count. A ballot paper on which a vote is marked elsewhere than in the proper place. So if you decide to go outside of the 2 box for Poya or myself, that ballot will be rejected. I have difficulty with this one, but this is the law, and until it is changed, otherwise than by mean of a cross, and the cross is what we talk about, the X. And I remember during the consultation of the Constitution proposal, we suggested that we should have a tick because the cross seems somewhat a negative, and we have all sorts of story. But like I say, that is for another time on the next place. And if you have more than 1 mark, so I will rest there for tonight. And let me open the line only. I'm going to see the first. I think I have a thing. Text. I'm going to read it first. Good night, Abraham and Mr. Poy. Mr. Abraham, will you say that the Constitution was breached when the no confidence vote was denied in Parliament? Obviously, there was a breach of the Constitution because the Constitution make provisions to remove a government through the polls or via a no confidence motion. And at that time, and I indicate that without any fear of contradiction, and I told the former speaker that when I met him at Heritage Square, and told him that he violated the Constitution, and all the nonsense he heard from the quote-unquote legal expert, they was talking garbage. All of them who indicated that a no and yes mean the same thing, and all them bullshit, sorry, all of them nonsense. That, because the Constitution is clear how a government can be removed different than through the electoral process where you remove that person. So yes, there was a breach of the Constitution then, and yes, a breach of the Constitution then. So yes, the lines are now open if you want to be a part of our discussion. 4565967. The WhatsApp is 4983802. And the Magic Jock is 718-734-5615. Yes. So Poya? Yeah.
No. I have a question to ask. Because a couple of police told me that this regime has not revoked any justice of peace. Is that so?
I can't know that. I don't know who was the justice of the peace, so I can't help you with that one.
I know a couple of persons.
Well, I can't help you with that. So,
I know a couple of persons who are justice of peace under the NDP, and their zone got revoked.
well, you don't have to ask the question. You get it right there.
No, but she said that they didn't revoke any.
So what they did? They asked them to bring back any stamp. Yeah, but I don't know. But I don't know all the justice of the peace who were there. So, but I know normally the government, when they take office, they appoint new justices of the peace. So I know that for a fact. Mhm. Yeah. So, Paul.
And also, I went further and asked, what is the qualification
Hmm.
for someone to be a justice of the peace? Because they should be able to have basic idea of the law, the constitution, and must be able not to be biased when dealing with matters within the community. But when you have persons of the other kin, I don't think we can have that. And some persons, they carry the right and they are justice of the peace. So
Yeah, I think the person in choosing justice of the peace in the early days, I know you used to look for person of reputable character and good standing in the community. And those persons used to be so appointed. I know a lot of them were teachers and principals and other persons in the community. But like it is a position that is, when I say a privilege, that is given to an individual by the party in power, and that is, I think, the criteria that is being used. So let me go back to section 47 while we wait on the call. So the summons in and the desolation of Parliament. Each session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Vincent and the Grenadines at such time, not being later than 6 months from the end of the preceding session in Parliament, has been prorogued, or 1 month from the holding of the general election of the representatives. If Parliament has been dissolved, the Governor General shall appoint by proclamation. B. If a notice is written, if a notice in writing is given to the speaker signed by no less than 3 representatives, or a motion of no confidence in the government, the speaker shall, not if, the speaker shall, if the House is then sitting or has been summoned to meet in 5 days, cause the motion to be considered by the House within 7 days of the notice. And it went on to give you, so yes, the motion of no confidence is a constitutional provision, that a provision in the Constitution that you can remove a government from office. And I remember I have to challenge my good friend also when he suggested that the budget is a confidence or no confidence motion in government and all sorts of other things, but that is not true. The Constitution make a provision for no confidence motion, and anytime a no confidence motion is taken to Parliament, it ought to have that effect. The thing is that the no confidence motion most of the time will fail because the composition of the Parliament, and you have to have a particular percentage in order for that no confidence motion to carry. And normally, you wouldn't find, or you a member of the government voting with the opposition normally. So you have that problem. So I don't see the fair where a no confidence motion cannot be debated. because the same argument you heard, the yes and the no doesn't make the sense. That is not what the Constitution says. So therefore, the persons who supported the yes could have debated the same thing. And yes, the person who debated no could have. But the day and the motion was for the no and not the yes. So by suggesting any different, then you have to prove to me that the Constitution is written in a different language, far different language than which we could understand. So that is the difficulty I have with people who trying to support a party X or party Y or position X or position Y without first looking at the particular provision in law or in the Constitution to take your opinion. Yeah, boy.
So that is one that was bothering me and
Wonder what?
with the justice of the peace.
Yeah, but justice of the peace is a position of government. They choose the justice of the peace to appoint or unappoint. And there's nothing we can do about it.
So a motion can be moved in
There's
parliament.
nothing we can do about it. The government is the one who, if that justice of the peace, you see, the problem is a justice of the peace ought to know an individual for at least, I think, 7 years before he can affix his or her signature on any document. I remember a friend of mine who a justice of the peace, and he affixed his signature on a document for somebody he didn't know for that period of time, and I can't remember if it's Bruce Lyle, subject to the correction with the judge, but it was summoned before the judge, and basically was given a legal lesson, and I don't think he ever did that again. I think he's still a justice of the peace today, but I don't think he ever did that again. So there are certain things that you ought to do. And you see the police also goes by the justice of the peace also to get the search warrant and other thing if they can't find a magistrate or go by a magistrate or judge, but they use the justices of the peace also. And I tell you this, if I are justice of the peace and you come to me and you income properly, don't expect me to sign it. So, you have to come good if you want me to affix my signature on any search warrant or anything of that sort. So you wouldn't make me a justice of the peace because if you're not following the law, well, don't come to me. I ain't saying like Vincent me. Don't look for me. Don't come to me. If you are following the law, then it's okay. I will fix my signature if I am a justice of the peace. But if you're not following the law, you will have to find a next justice of the peace who may be willing to carry out your foolishness. That is why I believe that you don't. Right, okay. Yes. So keep it the trail, right? on Nice Radio.
But the reason why that also came up to
Mhm.
it's concerning it's 15 days
Special registration
special
period.
registration
There's a
period
problem there with the justices of the peace. A
because
big problem.
and person
Yes.
going in people homes and all that to do this thing, I think it should be in an open area where other person could challenge,
hmm
so it would be transparent.
You see, the thing is, it is that while that is a kind of difficult one to that is very difficult to deal with, and I don't know. I don't know what the law say in relation to that, because here is it. You move into a constituency and the law states that you have to be in the constituency
For
for
6
6
months.
months or more in order to be registered. The justice of the peace may not know you for that period of time, but it's from the constituency, and he or she has to affix the signature on the document that comes before him. So I think that is why I believe the law indicate that the landlord ought to be involved in that process also. So maybe I think in that area you may be covered if you follow the proper process in terms of the landlord indicating that yes, and I know in some, the law indicated that you're supposed to show certain bills also to indicate that you are there. So I think in that particular area, whether or not whether or not the law need to be amended to deal with that. But I think in those things, it will be it will not be practicable for the justice of the peace, maybe. Well, with the little small society to know that person for 70 years, maybe he could know that person for that period of time because of the smallness of the society. So, but that particular 15 days registration period, I believe that that should be removed. Once the election date announced, then nobody should be registering after that. And I said it without any fear of contradiction. Also, the same thing with transfer, because even if we doesn't have a fixed date for election, we have a fixed, quote unquote, we have 5 years. It could be called within any time, but we have a, so once you go on down to the wire poya, then you know that elections will be called this year or before March next year. So therefore, you have no excuse. I know the argument came up when the Honorable Annam Eustace at the time suggested or carried the bill to Parliament to have the special 15 days registration period be removed, and persons, Dr. Gonzab, I think, and I think Dr. Gonzab was one of the main personally, but I not too sure. So the opposition then indicated that people will be disenfranchised. I'm going to tell you this. If any day you call it, people will be disenfranchised because you have somebody celebrating their birthday every day and they may reach 18, so people will be disenfranchised. So there is nothing strange about removing the special 15 days registration period after the rate is issued. There is nothing strange or, in my opinion, about that particular provision in the law. There's nothing strange about removing it because any day you call it, somebody is going to be disenfranchised. So that argument is a non-starter, in my opinion. Yeah, but we need, the whole law need to be amended. And they suggested that in 2011, and we're going on for 14 years later, and we still have the same thing. And that is 1982. That 1982, that law came in to being, and then we have nothing. The only thing well, I know for a fact we increased the constituencies after that law was passed, and we do some other cosmetic changes, but in terms of seriously amending the law to reflect a democratic society, I think that is a problem.
I was looking forward to have the candidates debate each other.
It's not here nor there with me because they're going to tell me the same. Yes, you know the word. Same thing, and it's not here nor there with me whether or not they debate. Because
the same BS.
Because technically you have that in Parliament, and you have that when you listen to the political meeting, they will oppose what. So you're not going to have anything serious, and it's not here nor there with me in terms of whether or not they debate each other or doesn't debate each other. What I want is proper representation. And therefore, you ask the question all the time. Because somebody told me that up to sometime this week, that a particular individual is a good minister, but he may not be a constituency representative. I elected you from my constituency to represent my constituency. And therefore, if you are placed in any position that is between you and your government, but you are responsible to me as my elected representative, and if you are not giving me the representation that you suggest, then you should have a system of recall. And therefore, a person should be able to recall that individual. And I tell you that I don't think in most constituencies, I don't think anybody get about 80, well, most constituencies you wouldn't get about 80% of the vote. Different than maybe in the Grenadines, and maybe you wouldn't get about 80% of the vote. So if you want to put it as high as 80%, then do that. Because it shouldn't be the person only who elected you. It should be the larger percentage of the constituents to trigger that recall of the candidate, the representative or the candidate for the constituency. Right? Because you'll find in some cases, you find that opposition members, past and present, give better representation than the elected the government, the members on the government side. You'll find that. So therefore, you may find that even though if he may be a good minister, he may be a poor representative, and he may be recalled by his constituents. You may be on the opposition, and you will be given better representation to your constituents because you were elected to represent your constituents. Right? So that is okay. Yeah, so there's a 10 tonight and tomorrow. I don't know which one tonight, and I'm still waiting, but yes. So for you, yes.
So I see now that the goons, the goons, that's what I call the security for Tongwood. I have noticed now that they have, now it's coming into the silly season, they have slackened down with their mannerism of just going and scramble up people thing and kill them in the arm, the truck or whatever. I see a whole set of people now are bending out of vehicles all over the town again. So
yes, my whole thing on that point is I believe people ought to follow the law. I believe the lawmaker ought to be reasonable also. And like I indicated from time immemorial that vending people ought to, but the way and the manner in which it used to be done, it can't be right. You have basically people with a small mini mart outside of a supermarket. How that could be right? No, so I think that we need to have laws, and but we need to be reasonable and practical with the laws that we passed in Parliament, or the law that we want to enforce. We need to be practical, and we need to understand the society in which we live, and basically tailor the law in such a way that persons can make a living, a decent living. And I know a lot of people want to be independent, and that is the best way to go. So that's why they seek self-employment. But there are laws that ought to be followed, because I know sometimes I used to have to walk in the road because the whole sidewalk are taken up. So but like I say, Paul, you can't move from one extreme to a next, because that was an extreme, and then what the town board and town board were doing was another extreme. So therefore, you can't move from one extreme to another extreme. You have to find a center ground, and that is what I think we lacking in finding the center because, like I say, the vending all over the place, doing all sort of thing that was unsightly, and you used to see those tables and those things. It was unsightly. But you move it from one extreme where you take away the people produce and all those things. That is another extreme. So we should find a center ground.
No, also I'm still with the vending. Is that you have the situation
Mm-hmm.
where I think they could have flea market
Yes, Friday and Saturday.
Fridays and
Yeah, nothing
Saturdays,
wrong with that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But they have run out of idea. They are bankrupt.
I don't think they bankrupt, and I think they just don't want to do it. They have no, because if you giving them idea, other person giving them idea, they record all the program, they listen to all the program. So therefore, even if they don't have the necessary thing in between the head or the two ears, they can listen and get the necessary information because the police does all the time and they listen and they amend the laws and amend certain things accordingly. So there's nothing wrong with getting ideas and information from other people. And this is the problem we have, boy. If the tongue board or the people, the authority, decide to listen to the vendors and they will give suggestions on recommendation, all of them, you don't have to take all of them because some of them may not be suitable. But you will get one or two recommendation that is workable that you can use. Because for years, if you listen to the tape I played today from the Attorney General, for years we're talking about amending the laws to keep up with time, real time. You can't tell me drinking under the influence of alcohol and you don't have breathalyzer. He now talking about getting necessary equipment. The speedometer, you can't tell me I speeding and you don't have nothing to test and tell me that I'm speeding. You talk about the decibel, you can't tell me my music is too loud because what is loud for poet may not be loud for me. Some people love to listen to music loud. I don't like music loud, but the thing is, it is that unless you get the necessary thing and keeping up with the time.
Also to the quality of the music.
No, that you see, that's another story and another time. Because the thing is, it is that some people. I never. Oh, sorry. So well, I never like Vice Cartel music. He started to sing some movies and everyone know, but I never listened to him. But other people like him. So I can tell somebody don't listen to him because I don't like listen to him. You get what I'm saying? So therefore, if you want to see the obscene language in public transport and other things, I could understand that. But
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Especially on morning time when school children.
It shouldn't be at all. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have those at all. And sometimes the omnibus operators, sometimes they don't have too much sense. And sorry to say that, but it's true. When you leaving home all your morning, boy, like 4 or 5 o'clock to do something, and that base stupidness they playing in the head. Base stupidness, not even to say something conscious where you can relax and enjoy yourself. Base stupidness. I mean, yeah, but yeah. So we can deal with those things also, and those are simple things to deal with. We do what today. Today we talk. Well, I say this week the Attorney General is now suggesting that we need to change the law. Everybody know that the law need to change years ago.
Because here it is, we see that our traffic safety week, right? But then we had what 2 days during the week of somebody there and you have other injuries.
But you can't. Who are you going to blame for that? It's the recklessness of the drivers. And I listened to, I think is Fidel Taylor. I think he's the big man, the manager for Century Insurance. And he was suggesting something that we were suggesting for years. Put back the speed limit, put back this, fix the road, doing this. Once you do that, you minimize certain things because in most of the roads an employer, well, once it's not on the main, you have to be dancing to see exactly where to put your vehicle. Most of the time in some of the roads off the main. And that is why you find some people, not all, that is why some people will come off the hand because they want the better part of the road. And somebody may be speeding along and you know what happened there. So if the roads are being maintained properly as he suggested to, that could minimize. But you'll find it all the time, boy, that you have some drivers, they shouldn't be on the road. Some drivers definitely shouldn't be on the road because I don't know where they went to get the driver's permit, but they shouldn't be on the road. They don't know the rules of the road. They basically don't know nothing. So they shouldn't be on the road. Some drivers shouldn't be on the road. So what I know, Rowley, the former Prime Minister of Trinidad, he had that exchange system, the merit system, and that I think the new Prime Minister want to get rid of it. No, to get rid of the demerit system because part of it I think was unfair too, but you need something in place where reckless driver over time, his license should be suspended. His license should be suspended for a period of time, and if he continue, his license revoke his license. You catch what I'm saying? I mean, you have to go to court to do the longer process, but you would need certain thing in place for those for regular driver, not only of omnibus but private vehicles too, with all sorts of stupidities that be doing on the road.
Racing.
Yeah, it's an overtake. I saw something. It went yesterday or the day before where coming up Side Hill. A guy overtook about 10 vehicles and then swing in the lane to King Garden for you and then swing back out. I mean, so those individuals, so the cameras will help with those individuals, but the cameras should have been servicing on the ground years ago. I'm glad that we suggested now that we amend the laws to deal with those things, and I hope it's not going to take forever to bring us up to civilization. Because with the traffic light, boy, it was effective, right? Boy,
Yeah.
the traffic light were effective,
Yeah.
and then people start to get accustomed to the traffic light. You'll find a driver here or there run the red light occasionally because sometimes it change fast, but it were working, but we moved the traffic light and say we were not ready for traffic
Well,
lights.
some of the reckless drivers run into them and mash up them.
No, we know that too. So you will always have problem with drivers who are reckless, and that is why you should have laws to deal with them. So we should have laws to deal with those reckless drivers. And then my thing is it to for you like you destroy a long pole, your insurance should pay. You destroy somebody wall, the insurance should pay. You understand? So the insurance should be the one responsible for those things. The light, the insurance should be responsible. Right? So therefore you deal with the problem and the insurance will carry up those individual premiums. So but that is what we need to do.
So those are some of the issues that are milling around the tongue and couple areas.
You dealt with that thing earlier. They want to come back to it, but we ain't gonna call because most person didn't know that we were going to be on. Sorry. The issue of Calypsonian and Calypso. The thing is that nobody, whether in parliament, well, I never support the absolute privilege. Whether in parliament or outside parliament, nobody have any right to defame or libel anybody whatsoever. Whether in songs or through parliament where you have absolute. I think that qualified privilege should be afforded to everyone. Everyone should have that qualified privilege. So if you call me a rapist and you can prove it, I should be able to sue you for damages. There's nothing wrong with that. If you could prove it, then you have nothing to worry about. But you can't, and I never support qualify absolute privilege in parliament. I think those were the time when you have kings and the kings are untouchable. But those laws need to be amended to deal with parliamentarians who abuse their power in Parliament, because I think I was listening to Parliament from Trinidad. I can't remember the former finance minister, and one of the opposition member was saying something, and he said, "Say that outside, say that outside." You remember that? And I think the same thing with the late Vincent Beach and Pierre Campbell also, where Pierre challenged him to make those statements outside. So you should not be able to defame anyone, whether in Parliament or through a calypso. And I have no problem if a person is being defamed or slandered that he take legal action. I think Prime Minister Gonzalez should have thicker skin in some of the lawsuit he brought. And I say that without any fear of contradiction, because the first one against Iggy Lynch, I think that was ridiculous. Yes, I think that was ridiculous. I don't know if it's the first one, but the one with the tapping the phone, I think that was ridiculous. Real ridiculous, but yes. So I have problem with, because when you are in certain position, you're supposed to have thick skin. I remember, let me get a story for you. When Posa sang Mounted Me Mama, I have a respond to that from my good friend. And Sir James told him, leave the man, let him sing. It didn't bother and defamation, nothing, leave the man, let him sing. You get what I'm saying? So, because I didn't see nothing defamatory in that. I'll give you another story. When, what is his name from Georgetown? His brother, his name, E.G. brother, what is his name? The Calypsonian one. Gao. When Gao sang Who Jumped the Sheep, I was working with a particular lawyer, and 2QC was involved in that particular case. And I was close to two of them. So one, because he was a spiritual Baptist, he was representing the pastor. And Gao was being represented by the other QC. And I was in the other QC office, and when they didn't have no case. They had no case, in my opinion. And then, well, nothing came out of that. But because, you see, in those things, that is crafty art, but you catch what I'm saying? So in that thing was a different scenario. I remember when Posa also sang, it should have been, you should have said Williams instead. Remember that?
Inside job.
Yes. And then those person was running up all over the place. And I remember a particular individual indicated, oh, you're afraid him. But I will deal with him because there was nothing wrong with it more than craft. Strictly craft. But the thing is that person, and my problem is that you take that person to court, he may win his case, but he will have to hire a lawyer. And when you hire the lawyer wants his money up front. And most of them, sometimes some of them wait, but they want the money up front, and then you have to wait forever for government to give you when you are successful. So that is the problem with the system, right? Hey, that's the problem with the system. Come forward, man. Yeah, that's the problem with the system. Yeah.
Now, the education system. You played a thief a while ago, and it was very interesting. And it's the kind of thing I think that we ought to be pushing, getting our people to think outside of the box and to challenge yourself. Yeah, because one thing she mentioned about success, but you're talking about the stress and those sort of things in order with the success. We don't think about that. And that is why you see a lot of children having anxiety and depression and all these sort of things, because we are putting too much pressure on them in terms of to be successful. And when you check it out, success in what? To get 9, 10, 12, 14 subjects? Huh? But then when you check it out, the subject does not connotate the practical things that they ought to be doing.
Yes. Yes, we have some problem with the education system, and like I believe the education system should prepare you for a living, and not only for certification. Certification is good, but how you going to survive and maintain your family and other things after you get those certificates? And parents also need to guide the children also, to guide the children in a particular area. The society, the school also can help in that, but you need to be guided, because let us say in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the majority of people going off to study, they come back as lawyers, right? A large percentage, I should say, come back as lawyers.
Then you have some in the medical field. Then you have
No, the larger thing return is lawyers, because some of the lawyers and I don't even know the names. You understand? We know we have it there in the medical field too, but the larger. So, and the other issue is that everybody want to go on their own, not a company. But everybody want to go on their own because they believe they can make more monies on their own, right?
But they don't have the experience.
Not only that too, you see, you don't have a lot of specialists in any particular field. Well, you don't have a lot of them specialists in any particular field, because you find you call to the bar today and you are a constitutional lawyer, a criminal lawyer, a human rights lawyer, and you want to do everything. You can't. That is the problem we have for you. That is the problem.
Formal education that maketh a man or a woman. The great Indian sage Raja Gopalachari says, education is not merely attending institutions and acquiring certificate. He says,
No.
You may have gone to school, but has school gone through you?
Mm-hmm. Come now.
No, the Mumba that you just brought up there, he is really interesting and personal. I saw one the other day where he attacking the Christian and show you how Christianity is a false religion. Because he says you have so many churches and they are serving one person, Jesus Christ. But yet still they are so divisive in their operation that they have too much infighting within them based on class, based on doctrine. And he went on and showing you whereby before African used to worship spirit, and the spirit was within. And if we go back to that aspect, it will make things far much easier than.
But the problem I think is not anything about religion. It's a problem with the interpretation of scriptures. You see, every individual interpret the scriptures how he sees fit. And that is the problem, not Christianity. Is the problem is the interpretation of scriptures, because let us deal with two issues. One, tithing. Some church believe you should tithe, some believe you shouldn't tithe. The scripture is clear on the issue. And unless you follow the pattern of interpretation, you're going to be misguided. The seventh day, the Sabbath day, right? There's no doubt that the 7th day is the Sabbath day. right? There's no doubt disabled, but people have all sort of excuse and they come up with all sort of things.
I could recall that they had 2 Sabbath.
No, they have plenty Sabbath, but I'm talking about the
the-
Sabbath. No, plenty Sabbath, not only 2, we have plenty Sabbath.
The mid week Sabbath.
They have plenty
recall that
Sabbath.
one day.
No, they have plenty Sabbaths. Not only 2 Sabbaths, they have plenty Sabbaths. But what I'm saying, the 7th-day Sabbath, there's only one. And then people, so there is the problem is the interpretation and not the Christianity or any other religion.
Education is the equalizer because it is still true that the mind is the standard of a human being. No matter how tall you are, if your mind does not work well, you are just a tall fool. No matter how short you are, if your mind does not work well, you are just a short fool. But if you have a mind, no matter how tall and no matter how you look like, we will recognize that there goes a man and a woman whose mind speaks for itself. There is the tendency of thinking that if you are a village champion, you are a champion. No. A village champion is not a champion, he's only a champion in his village.
No, also with those issues, the situation of whereby now Trump has banned visa for certain countries.
About 12.
And say that there's another 22 added to it. And say that he's protecting America. But then, if there's a rich...
yeah, let me take your first call. Holy point. Pleasant good night.
Good night, tall and short fool in the studio. Hello?
Hey, good night. What do you say?
I'm saying good night to the tall and short fool in the studio tonight. All right. I'm quoting what you just said a while ago. By Lubamba.
Oh, that's slapped you.
Well,
go ahead.
well, you know, when you touch on the topic of
education.
You get my attention. And, well, in your opinion, what is the person responsible for the education of the society? In your view?
Well, first the family.
Number one.
Yeah. Then the school, the church.
Ministry of Education.
The community.
Of course, the wider community. We tend to leave out social groups and clubs which really basically are on a decline or still exist. And also maybe the business community as well, because ultimately you want these people to come to your establishment, you know, well prepared and so on. So whether it's not in terms of whether you're not teaching directly, you could organize programs, funding and so on to, you know, assist in whatever way you can. You know. But in education, one of the first things you have to first of all define clearly education. Is a person but he can read or knows timetables or he can tell and so forth. I mean, it is education. If you have 3 degrees, 2 masters, and 2 PhDs, and you polish like that.
Correct.
You can't reason, you can't have a proper conversation, and you see all the time things and people who are quote unquote educated. All they can do for you is to repeat what their leader, in political or religious leader say. They can't add anything to it than what there's nothing in their brain they can. It's scary, it's sad. Take for example the recent discussion on the CBI. It is purely dominated party political line. So I heard an argument by somebody who has a PhD. That, I mean, how come Barbados is not pushing CBI or the Bahamas? You know, that's your level of discussion. Probably there's no need for it. Maybe more advanced, you know, or probably they have other things in place that can, you know, make up for it. like probably a proper running tourism industry and so forth. So is that your level of argument that's a bit disappointing as a PhD holder?
There was different form of giving a citizen the citizenship, individual citizenship.
Well, all these different things that were alleged reason.
Mm-hmm.
I want to stick some more. Well, I really haven't gone after the issue because we talk about education, But of particular concern to me, and I've heard Lord Ballantyne on several occasions raise this issue, but really a sexy topic. And sometimes the guys around him are not really too keen on, they really pay attention to what he's saying that much. And it's thing about reading and the reading level, schools. I've been teaching for a very long time. And at the secondary level. And I got a bit scared when I heard you talk about universal access to secondary education. Not because I don't think that every child has the right to be educated, but then I know that there was nothing done in the primary and the secondary level, well, especially secondary, prepare them for the influx of kids when I come to them and so on, not clearly not ready. I don't think the school system has ever recovered from that foolish blunder. Not the policy itself, but the fact that nothing was done.
Yeah,
to keep that. I remember 1 year, the first year, they had learning support coordinator. So what they did, they brought in some retired teachers, most like the English teachers and so on, to work along with the schools. And 1 year, and that was it. I mean, we get funding for all kind of different nonsense sometimes. And it's something I think that some of these donor agencies will gladly fund, reading and literacy and so forth. Right? You may have a teacher being trained in literacy, come back and he's supposed to teach, he or she is supposed to teach maybe some maths or some PE because you have a PE teacher and so forth. So even at the school level in terms of management of resources that you have is a problem. Right? I mean, allocation of resources. So right then I think the problem got a little crazy. Now, before the universal access, kids knew that they had to work hard, and the parents knew they had to work hard, and the teachers know in order for the school not to look bad, they had to put in this extra effort for these kids to pass, common entrance to the secondary school. Universal access says to me that, man, come at me, hello, high water, we're gonna big school. And I got the impression that from that time, the effort probably wasn't as great from the different stakeholders, whether it's the home, the child him herself, the primary school, and the teachers and so on. So I became concerned and I asked around, right, in the primary school, I have friends in the primary school, what is the problem? Why are kids coming to me in Form 1 and they can't read? They cannot recognize letters of the alphabet. They don't know letter sounds. They can't tell what are vowels and consonants. And increasingly, they're coming increasingly. The numbers are increasing. And they have all these laps and so on in the learning and so forth. Well, they say that, first of all, part of it is political. Right? So a young teacher comes on staff and the principal assigns intent to those readings for the teacher to do. And they bluntly refuse to do it. I say, what? Yes. So maybe they are sent by Mr. So-and-so. They tell you plain talk, I have so-and-so on my phone on speed dial and you can't tell me what not. I say, I gotta be crazy. So that's first of all one of the problems. And I spoke to a recent retired principal. I say, well, what is going on? I mean, same problem. Yeah, tell us something. So I would tend to be reading, and some of the teachers simply refuse to teach the reading. Several persons with the same story. It's consistent. Right? And think about it. There is so many times you can take a teacher to the ministry if you refuse to do the work, and eventually they might get transferred again because they know nothing gonna happen. And for the principalities, just becomes frustrating. Right? So these are some of the issues. Question about the home as well, the home environment, that's very, very important. Right? The first teacher is the mommy and daddy or whoever at home,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in terms of language development, you know, teach them some basic stuff and so on. Some of us, the parents didn't know much, you know, in terms of literacy, but then what they did, they ensure that we,
Mm-hmm.
you know, spend time in our books. You had to go and, as they say, pick up your book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you get home, they will check every single afternoon. Come and see it today. And maybe all they can do is check the number of ticks and so on, and
Mm-hmm.
wrong and so forth. But at least you know that they are checking, and you can't come home with an empty book without homework and so forth. But now, sometimes a kid come to school, you check their bags. This guy had in his bag an empty shoebox.
Hmm.
It gives the impression that he's bringing books to school. That is the extent to which this nonsense has gone. You know, so this problem with the system is an entire, what they call for entire week discussion. And if people are frank and they're honest, you will see where the problems are. But you see, we have a culture where we're not willing to face the problem head on, gentlemen. I had a discussion recently in Barbados where the Ministry of Education and some of the major officials and so on, they were the ones coming forward to say that we have a problem with literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, without any facts and so on to back it up, that their system is a problem higher than ours, right? Their own universities and so on. And so they were admitting that there's a problem, and this is what you're going to do to fix the problem. It's in Vincent, if you say there's a problem publicly, you are the problem. You become the problem. And people want to crucify you, maybe transfer you, whatever, castigate you, because you see that there's a problem. There is a major problem with the system in St. Vincent, and part of it is we are not willing to talk about it and come up with proper solutions.
But explain to me how a child will leave kindergarten, grade 6 to secondary school and can't read and write.
Explain how they could get to you the Form 1
Yes.
and don't know
pass through the whole system up to grade 6.
Right. That is the mystery. And they say no child left behind, so he should just promote it, socially up and out, becomes somebody else's problem.
And then they come aboard in the society.
Well, wait. I'll come to that. So now they get to Form 1, they can't read. If you're not careful, somebody laugh at them, how they make and so forth. Right? Some schools do not have a proper reading program and so on. Right? I know a former principal who says that we have a program, but we're trying to hide it from ministry because you don't want anybody to know that we have a program to send you week one care. That kind of nonsense.
Okay.
Kind of bullshit. Right? So people are not willing to be honest and so on. But what we have now is a high rate of dropouts. And we are playing games with this thing. Eh? We are playing serious games with this problem of school dropout. So the government may deny is a big problem or play with the figures a bit. And the opposition, I think, don't push enough to get this problem dealt with. So you will find that on a weekly basis, you'll find 3 kids missing in a Form 1 or Form 2. You call home, you call the parents. A lot of it comes down to parenting, right? How could you have a child not going to school for a week? You don't call, you don't text, you don't send a note. Call home, you say not feeling good or some kind of phone and shit. And the next week and so on, and I just keep on, and I've gone to some places where I've never been before looking for children. You know, you meet the parent, the parents, you're up just for asleep, it's midday. go up and see if you Miss, my child, you want me to go up there and look for him? If your child, you're here on the beach relaxing and telling me to go, and you forgot to get your child. Right? And it's the whole, but I think more can be done on the school level to actually check. I know that there is one, at least one truancy officer.
But I was going to ask about them.
But what can one person do with a problem of that magnitude? That's it's basic foolishness.
But just should the truant officer walk along with the police or other individuals to want the child is under school age?
It has to be a policy. It has to go way beyond truant officers. I think somebody says that in Barbados, for example, if your child is met on the street at a certain time of the day, they should be in school, you the parent coming from. brave enough to come to that to get to that level to deal with it. Unless we are that brave and serious, the problem will never change. And what's not going to happen now? After you spend 2-3 years in Form 1, right? You drop out. You can't feed, probably can't spell, probably can't come to good. You're on the block. Somebody say, hey, young man, make you feel good. You got 20, go take your man with me and I'll go and chop this me here. So. And that's where the problem with crime is actually. So you may probably not use them in Form 1 and 2, but you might use them coming to your window. And that to me is a link, a definite link between the problem with the educational system and crime and so on. And street kids. Man, look at how many kids on the street on a daily basis. That's come to the extent where one of them killed another one. And it's like nobody really cares. You think that's country? Nothing serious has been done to address the problem of street children who should be in school. Why school is going on? And it baffles me is the level of lack of concern. That is the most cruel thing ever. How can you have a child on the street during school time every day in public view? Police passing, politicians passing, all the people passing, and nobody takes notice. They are begging. People will use them. People are doing that. I can't wrap my head around this craziness of society. We are some sick people. I can't get it. This can't make sense. So many of these kids are dropping out of school and so on in Form 1, in Form 2. The stats are there. The ministry, the government can't say that they do not know. You know how much coming to Form 1 and how much graduate after 5 years. You know how much are crazy. So yes, you can focus maybe on the elite schools and say, yes, education revolution is wonderful. But if you're serious about people's children, if you're concerned, you will take a holistic view. Look at all the schools and ask yourself, what is happening to all these kids when they come into Form 1, maybe 100 in Form 1, and at the end of 5 years, you may have 10 or 15 graduating. And of that 10, so they probably spend 2 years in Form 4, so they're not the same year and so forth. And it baffles me, people just relax and sit back. And yes, you have the high flyers and so on will do well in spite of the teachers because maybe the parents, go out the extra mile and so forth. Right? They have all the resources and so on. But how many of them do have a proper book? How many of them do have a meal on a daily basis? And coming to school. So boy, this whole education system, it's crazy. And it's a point just for your information, in any religion you have division, you have different sects, different denominations. Even, for example, among the Muslims, you have different type of Muslims who cannot get along, will kill one another. Right? So that in itself don't make a religion fall. People are people wherever you go, boss man. Right? But the system is crazy, educational system, and I don't know how seriously political parties are in terms of fixing it. But they have a role to play in terms of politics and so on, and other things happen. But we have to get the kids off the street. There has to be a serious and major push towards improving and increasing literacy and numeracy. And it's sad. You feel sorry for these kids, man. I don't know why. All right, so guys, that's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, sorry. Okay.
I spoke to a particular supervisor today in an establishment. Okay, let me take this call. Pleasant good night. Pleasant good night.
Good night.
Good night.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So I want to just build on what the caller before
No
was
problem.
saying
Go ahead.
about our education system.
Yes.
That not only that the education system needs to be revamped totally, in my opinion, but parents also are illiterate. And so when you have a discussion with them about their children, as if they have no idea what you're saying, and I think it's more than that they don't know what to do. They don't know how to help their children. And it seems as if, because we are in this impoverished communities, that those are the children that suffer the most, unless they're super brilliant and they're just born with a special talent of learning, and so they will make it. But the middle class, they're making it because if the kids are not doing well in school, if the teachers are not being able to present the reading strategies that the children need, that the parents find someone to send them for tutoring, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And another thing, our government is not committed to the uplifting the education system. For example, right after COVID, the budget after COVID, the minister of finance says, "Oh, we're going to put some money towards tutoring because the children are lacking. They missed out on their education." Right? He never did. At least if he did, he didn't do it in Canawan. And then we are lacking teachers who are telling me, because I am a returning national, I'm a literacy expert, and so I go to the schools to volunteer. And when you go there, teachers doesn't know how to teach reading because there is no particular curriculum or they probably didn't do it in teachers college, or some of them didn't go to teachers college, and what is being taught in teachers college is not being translated back to the classroom. And so this year was the worst, where kids are not able to write. So they're in 6th grade getting ready for high school, and they can't write an essay of any kind. They don't know indentation. This is really simple. They should have learned it somewhere in 3rd grade, or maybe in where I was teaching, and we teach it in 1st grade, that they indent and they start a sentence with a capital letter and not writing a word with capital letters in between. I mean, we're talking basic, really basic fundamentals of reading. And so something has to be done. Otherwise, we're going to have a lost generation. Because I'm wondering, I also help in the high school in Canawan also, and the principal said to me, I have to come in next year more because the children are coming up not knowing. I go in to help, and kids cannot read, and they are in 2nd form. How is that possible? So they're lost. And then, of course, he was talking about the dropout rate, and nobody is doing there is no action plan of how do you get these kids to stay in school. Like, I was educated in Barbados, my initial education, and you can't be walking the street during a school time because the police will pick you up, and your parents will be in a lot of trouble. Because it's accountability. We as a society seems to lack accountability. And then as citizens of St. Vincent and Grenadines, of parents that have children, even though my mother didn't know all of the fundamentals of school, she made sure that I did my work when I was growing up way back then. And so there is no excuse. And now that parents can come into the school and ask what's happening. Another thing that is lacking is adult education. A lot of dropouts, giving people an opportunity to school to learn basic English, basic math, numeracy, survival skills. A lot of older people people who have children, parents don't know these things. They don't know how to read themselves. They can't teach their children to read. We don't even have a system of how to teach reading. And then when the kids get to high school, the high school teacher says, well, we didn't learn how to teach basic reading when the kids get up there. But I don't understand that part either, because whether you, as a high school English teacher, and you don't know how to teach basic English, that's a problem in itself. Because then we're still doing chalk and talk. We're still thinking that we're teaching in whole group, this whole group instruction in St. Vincent Grenadines. That is so long gone. We need to break up into groups. We need to take a look at the strong, the weak, and we need to provide the services that they need. We don't even have, if we have those kids who have special needs, who might need extra help to get through the curriculum that we don't have in the first place. And there is no reading specialist in schools. How is that? And how is that we don't have that push to tell teachers, when you go to Teachers College, you have to become a specialist. You have to take a specialist, take specialist courses. For example, when I went to school in New York City, and I went to Teachers College, Columbia Teachers College, when I went there, we had to have special education, 6 credits, because every teacher must know how to identify the deficits in the classroom. They might not be able to teach all of it, but if they can identify it, then they can refer to the special building that we don't have and to help our children. There is so many things that we are lacking. I am very surprised when I returned to St. Vincent 5 years ago, because I said I have to return when I'm young enough to be able to give back, because that's the way that my parents taught me. And so it's frightening when I walk into a high school class and the teacher says, these kids can't read, and I don't know what to do. We have to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is compulsory that we know what to do, because then we're going to lose our children, and illiteracy is going to be way up there, and therefore the government could continue to take advantage of families and people, and we don't have a voice. I mean, parents, whether you are educated or not, they should have a voice that says, my child needs help. Can someone help them, please?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's my contribution. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much also for your contribution. Very interesting. But I know in the early days, they used to have some adult education classes. I know they had in Sharps, in Green Hill, and some in Kingston also. But I still baffling with the understanding how a child could leave kindergarten right through the system. Let me take the call. President, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
You not promise to call me. You not promise to come.
Yeah, I ain't tell you when. I give you the day the first time. I give you the day the second time.
Let me tell you something. I fed up and think I need a help. Otherwise, you all go lose me. You have the lady next.
I heard you talk to what is his position, Bailey. Sometime ago on the program, and he promised to assist. Okay.
They cut me
no,
off.
when I was listening that time, I didn't think he cut you off.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. He have some people.
Yes.
Pretending then I interfere.
Okay.
Right? He never do thing. Got people wrong when he interfere with me and me talk. Lord, Father, deliver me out of the lion death. If you all not help me, I will suicide myself. I fed up. I don't know what to do again. Okay? Please,
yes.
Abraham.
Yes.
Come and see me.
Okay.
And solve the problem.
Well, I don't know if I can solve the problem. I will come and see you. Yes.
Okay?
Okay, yes.
And I want Mr. Bailey to listen.
Yes.
Just because they know them a labor. Imagine I just call in from his neighbor toilet. I never call Hack 10. Then go and tell the man me report something would happen. My life threat, no. Please, please, I need help. I don't know what to do again. And otherwise, take my life and let it be. Grant the great the Lord to thee.
All
I
right.
will go Melton home and take a injection, and when you walk out, rain a come, breeze a bro, pitch them backside out the door.
Take it easy. We go come. We go say we visit you soon.
When I go to the station, when you don't check the people, you come my station.
Okay.
That now.
All right. Take it easy. Pleasant good night. Pleasant good night.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah, greetings, brother Abraham and
Greetings.
brother Fire.
Yes.
And the rest of the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bongo Shake here.
Yes, yes.
Abraham, let me get the program on the right track there. Let me add a strength to the teacher lady. Right? Sounds very experienced and know what she's talking about. Okay? But experience, we all know, is the greatest teacher. And I guess that from teaching throughout the years, being repetitive. And as I know, in something like you gotta repeat, like in sports, you gotta repeat your training. Just like I'm a karate instructor, I repeat a lot of my training for the same 30, 40 years. I don't get fed up, but I get more perfected in it. Okay. I do agree with her. One main point I take out of her discussion is about the reading ability of youth. Abraham, I know you probably elder than Poya.
Nah, Poya is my grandfather. Stop that.
Yeah, you can take of a party, bro. So you don't be older than all the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I check say when we used to go to school, right? I remember, and I think it should be a part. I don't think about it, right? That's why I see that party problem from small coming up. Whether it's kindergarten, when and parents have a lot to do with it also. Both parents and teachers. You have youths reading. If there's a class of 15 or 20 children, you have a day specially where you have maybe a story and each child have to read a 4, 6 lines or a paragraph, whatever the case may be. And then you'll be able to recognize who in reading or what words give them trouble. But it takes a really aggressive move if you're really concerned. I know there's some teachers who are very concerned. That teacher lady sounds like she's one, Into your children, this is your own flesh and blood that came out your womb, Even as a mother, as a teacher. I have teachers dedicated like that, and I take my hats off to them, I give them really credit. Not easy to be a teacher, no matter what you teach. Once you dedicate it, you have to have real discipline and humbleness, and foremost, you have to have love within yourself and love for what you're doing. So I say, Abraham, you recognize these traits in the children. So when you come up now, you start with primary school. You don't get rid of these things that was charging you bit by bit. So when you enter second, you shouldn't have no problem stopping to read something, calling word, because we know basically our language was taken away, and English is the basic language here. So it's obvious where everything we're doing is in English. So you can't be stupid and say, me now want me to learn English. You have to learn English in a proper way. And what I notice in it, right? I'd be amazed. I'd be here checking out something like a news expression, news reading, whether it's radio, TV. All of them have problems because in reading things, you gotta know you have breathing techniques. You gotta know where to pause. You gotta know words that come right after the other without a pause. You gotta know words that have a pause. Like you saying Victoria Park party session was nice right now, but you want to say Victoria Park, you want to say Victoria, then you have a pause, a couple seconds, then you want to say Park was a good session last night, whatever. You have to read and say Victoria Park session was very nice a good last, or whatever. I seen all these mistakes. People putting news item together. I want to ask myself, where did they learn English? Because I know I can say I was fairly good in English in school. especially in literature, writing poems and all these things. My old teacher, Sydney Hall, can testify of this, because we have gathering together, so we boys from former years, and we talk about things we had ability and we were weak in the school, because human now and again and so on. So I know, I want to know if these people pass English, who writing up these news items? Why are they putting news items like that? And almost all the readers check it out. And making mistake when you're reading news, and you can't call words properly, and it's too much mistake over and over. You gotta be professional. So I think that weakness came from not being able to read and digest what you read and properly had an overstanding and words with its present, past, and words and all these things. So I agree with the teacher. So we gotta take an aggressive move on it. And because too much of years I keep hearing this thing over and over and over. Right? And I think parents, Brother Abraham and Brother Fire, parents should get into when your children are around you. Instead of them on the tablets and this and everybody in a house, 6, 8 people, everybody on the phone. You got the children sit down sometime and pull something out of a book. I sure almost all parents can read. Just tell them read something and see if they get a problem. And you can help them if they're strong to call words, For Abraham, my youth was very going to read. You know how I developed them? From the baby. When we given, as we Rasta say, Isaac, we sing our daily prayer in the morning with the Bible and so on reading, right? After a while, he couldn't read. We said, give him. But he calling big words who I know. He won't even start learning words in a school yet. So he got inspiration from the Almighty Father. I know that's part of it. Letting children read scriptural verses or whatever, or prayer, or whatever. So parents have a big part to do with it. And it's time enough we up our game. Again, our children read them properly. So and can speak the English properly when they're in a certain way. You will be amazed some people how they react to you. You try to speak proper English, and when they answer you, you don't want to know this person in that position talking them kind of way, So I give thanks, man.
Okay, thank you.
So
so for so the trick is that how could a child kindergarten right through grade 6 in early days in school, you had spelling, you had reading, you
comprehension.
you have what we call it, timetables, and it used to be at the back of the thing, so you didn't have problems. So, but how could that happen? Because that still puzzles me. Let us say for you with the kindergarten, you can't read properly, you understand that. Then you move up grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. You're ready to do common entrance or CPA. You can't read and write. You gone into the secondary school, Form 1, Form 2. Sometimes you out in Form 3, you still can't read and write. That, if you want, that is impossible. To me, I can't understand how that can happen. Right? I can't understand how that can happen. In the early days, most of us from around St. Elias to primary school, preschool we went. It's Miss Seals and the other one. Yes, so those two, and before you enter into primary school, read right under your tables. You had no problem with those things. I was told by what you call them, early childhood developer, and she told me that they're not allowed to teach certain things now. It's just basic. I almost say stupidness, but you're not allowed to do what. Yeah, you're not allowed to do what the preschool teacher used to do in the early days, because you put in too much a burden on the children at a young age. I never hear such nonsense. Yes. But so that is a problem. But how could a person move from one grade to the other without understanding certain things? Not even letters? No. I find that difficult. I remember a couple of years ago, a former minister of education told me with the same thing about getting the child or children back into school, and the parent should be penalized if the child or children is underage and out of school, he turned to me and told me, how you going to punish a parents 2 times? A pleasant good night.
Hey, Abraham.
Hey, good night.
Good night. I was on for about 7 minutes.
Okay, so sorry about that.
One of the things that we have to underscore is
how you doing? And I'll get your voice. Good night.
yeah. One of the things we have to underscore is that it's not every teacher or every person in the classroom who is teaching is teacher trained.
Okay.
The government is putting a lot of people into the classrooms now. This is for job orientation. Right? So if a person comes to your school and they want to teach, then the school must have a program to do some kind of orientation, guide them, mentor. But if you leave a teacher, I shouldn't say a teacher because you have to be trained to be a teacher, right? If a person comes into the school and you say you assign them to do language art, reading is part of language art, and they do not get the kind of coaching and mentoring, they're going to mess up. You can't take a sanitation worker and put a sanitation worker to work on a patient in the intensive care in the hospital. I am making that analogy to say, if the policy of the government is that you must be teacher trained before you enter the classroom, why is it you are sending these people into the classroom and they don't have the training? Because schools sometimes they do 1 day per month professional development. They only have a week in the summer vacation, right? And the ministry now is dictating that which day in the month for schools to have the professional development. The other thing is that strategies, they require resources. And the government, the ministry is not providing even things like Bristol board, markers, basic things that you need, right? To prepare the material to teach, because sometimes you could use flashcards if you're doing sight words and so on. You could use objects associated with the word so children would be able to recognize, because children, every child doesn't learn the same way. There are different learning styles.
Correct.
You know, and we have to, it's a very good kind of having, and we need to have a critical look as to what is happening. I have my own concerns also, like a child is moving from one level to the next and cannot master the basic concepts. There are certain sight words, we call them sight words, which must be recognized by a child depending on the age of the child. Right? I mean, you would always have some what you call the high flyers.
Yeah, correct.
You would have some in between and some below. So what teachers are trained to do is what you call differentiated instruction. So you structure your teaching that it caters to all those 3 levels of students. If you don't do that, those who are struggling at the bottom of the ladder would always be left behind. And people expect the parents to pick up that slack. A lot of the parents are not trained to teach certain subject areas. I see a lot of parents make an effort to help. What we have now is a paradigm shift. There are a lot more burdens on the parents to provide schools with this and that. And the next, long ago you go to school, the school would have crayons, you know, rulers. So when it comes for art and craft, you have the materials there, but now parents have to find that every week. And those things are not given in advance. Like say a book list and a book list. You know?
Okay, for tomorrow.
So we have to look at the whole picture. If the policy of the government is saying no child left behind, you have to put the resources in place. These children now are digital native. Some of them have access to devices, but are the devices being used in the school? There are some schools who said you can't bring them. You have to integrate the technology, use it in order to help in the delivery of the curriculum. There's a time and place for it. Once you have clear guidelines in place as to what you're not supposed to use it to do in school, and you enforce that, you have to be consistent, use the technology. The children taking too many books on the back to school, and half of the books not being utilized.
Correct.
You understand? And we're in the digital age. So, for example, you could be doing a science lesson on the parts of a plant. You could tell the children, take a picture use the tablet, take a picture, bring it to the classroom, and you could have group work, we call cooperative learning, where they could share and interact and correspond. You just have to facilitate the learning. But sometimes I see classrooms closed, windows closed, doors closed, and sometimes a child can't even speak in the classroom. I am not saying you encourage children, everybody in the classroom, to just speak out of turn. But you can't be you can't have a classroom like a jail. Children must be at ease. You have to create that conducive, caring environment for them to express themselves in a very positive, meaningful way without any disrespect. A caller all mentioned about truancy officers. Based on the law, we don't have truancy officers. They call them attendance officers. When they had the draft for the bill, it was called truancy, but they have put it in the positive, and they call it attendance officers.
Okay.
But we still need
what are their responsibilities?
Well, one of their responsibilities is to reach out to students who have a high rate of absenteeism.
Okay.
They're supposed to find out what is going on, and then they have the authority under the law to get those children into school.
Who are they supposed to find out from?
They could find out from the parents.
Okay. No. How they getting the information first? From the principal or the teacher?
They could get it from both.
Okay.
And if they're out there in the field, they may see certain children roaming the place.
Okay.
Because we have street boys in the city, just going around at restaurants and supermarkets and begging and whole day, every day when they should be in school.
So the other question is, the attendant officers, are they from the community that they work in?
Well, you see, no, because only two of them.
Okay, so that create a problem also.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what we are saying, they're supposed to have a work plan that they would visit schools also and find out.
Okay.
And then they'll get the information. You know? And they could work also with the social welfare department, because those people have communities that they would work in.
Correct.
But I want to say there was a issue I found out of a parent who was not sending the children to school. And I wrote to the ministry about it. I even wrote to the commissioner of police. Understand? I wrote to all the stakeholders. Nobody responded. And those children were at home. I don't know if it's something with some ideology or some philosophy or something. It has nothing to do with homeschool.
Okay.
Because under the law, homeschool, and some people feel homeschool is an ad hoc thing. No, the law has a procedure. You must Ministry of Education. You must follow the curriculum. You must do the necessary assessment. And the ministry also have the responsibility to do the assessment of the children. And if they are performing below, then the ministry could intervene and prevent you from homeschooling.
Help me out here. I had to go back to something you said earlier on. You said that there are 2 attendance officers.
Yeah, 2 attendants.
For the country?
Not enough.
For the whole country? For the whole country?
Yeah.
That you're okay, right?
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
It must be ridiculous.
Because these officers, even if we have to link that to what we call the casual mileage.
Yes.
Right? and based on their salaries, if they can't cover all the schools in Simmons and the Grenadine at all.
I can't believe you said two for a whole country, man. Nah.
Yeah, it's two.
Okay.
And this is a multi-island state.
So one on the windward and one on the leeward.
Well, don't forget the Grenadine.
No, I know. I'm just saying that. But I'm just joking when I say that because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they have the areas that they are assigned to.
Yes.
And this incident I'm telling you about, I know that attendance officer made an effort and tried everything to try to get that matter resolved. That is why I took it up. I wrote to the ministry, I wrote to the commissioner of police. Because you have to work with the police for not adhering to the law. You know, and nobody responded. So the transfer officer, in my opinion, did not get the support from relevant authorities.
But if
the parent in question had threatened the attendance officer.
If it's a case where the parent can't afford in terms of helping the child to go to school, what kind of support system is there?
Well, that is why the letter I wrote, I also addressed it to the Ministry of Family Affairs, Social Welfare, that they would work with the other players and provide the support. That ministry has support, you know. If you go there, you could get assistance, uniform, books, you know, and utilize the school buses. So there is support there. So I describe the parent as being depriving the children of their right to the kind of education. But we need to have a national debate on this issue of reading. Children not reading at the level. I believe that the timetable is overloaded, and every little things that every little thing you hear come on stream, you're hearing everybody say, start it in the school, start it at this level. You understand? And if the teachers do not get the support that they need from the relevant authorities, the problem will continue. So sad to put it that way. But that's the reality.
So what do you think should be done in the interim?
Well, the professional development, teaching of reading, in my days, and I am glad you mentioned about we used to do dictation. In my days, I used to integrate the subject areas. Sometimes, and there's a fundamental difference between what people call team teaching. It's not real team teaching they're doing. What they're doing is subject teaching. If you're doing team teaching and then you're in the same class, I am working with a group of students. You may be marking the books, or you may be working with the slow students. That's team teaching. But what is happening now, if I am teaching reading, the other teacher is not there really to give the support. In the majority of school, that's not happening. And another person might be there, but that person may not be capable of giving the support because that person might be a set worker. Doesn't have any training in teaching.
In our days, if you are slow and the teacher identify you as a slow person, they used to have what you call evening classes for those individuals.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people charging children for evening class.
Yeah, I used to pay $10.
Yeah, but some.
So it is illegal to charge?
Yes. Based on the Education Act. And I know the ministry sent a circular in schools last time about it. You know, I mean, you represent teachers, yes. But if you're breaking the law, you have to tell them they're wrong, and some people get upset with you and don't want to ask you about that.
Okay, let me ask you another question. A teacher job, the hours is from what?
Well, you go in, you're supposed to be on the job by 9:15.
And finishes at when?
Well, 2:45.
And if
but
you...
what I observe some schools are doing, some schools, they will call schools 9:15, 2:45, 1:45, but in the evening to dismiss. They're not going to 2:45.
Okay. The question I want to
the secondary school is slightly different. I
Okay.
don't know which law they're following. Because I believe our schools under the Education Act.
Okay.
But there are some secondary schools that start in 8:15, some start in 8:30, and that sort of thing.
Let me ask a question. Do you think it's unfair for my instructional time, let's say from 9 to 3, and I go teach, I have evening classes until 4 and not being compensated?
Well, the law says no tuition fees for the students that you teach.
So that means a lot of teachers wouldn't stay back to teach to give the extra hour, where you may have a smaller group of children where you could instill or have a better opportunity to impart the knowledge.
You and the parents have to find a way to get around it.
Okay.
Because if you are making extra money,
yes,
far more than your salary,
uh-huh.
if you're not teaching reading in your class, but you're charging the same children for reading,
yeah, it's unfair.
At lessons,
yeah, it's unfair.
Based on our code of conduct, it is unethical, and based on the Education Act, number 34 of that year, it is illegal.
Let me ask you the question. As a former principal, still educator, how you used to cope with it, and do you think it's worse now than when you were principal?
Well, the thing is, you could offer the children the support that they need. And you could say to the parents, it's not really a payment.
Okay.
You could say, make a contribution, assist me with the costs, the expenses for printing.
Okay.
Because a lot of schools don't have printing facilities.
Yeah,
Some of them don't even have papers.
Correct.
Some of them have to go to the ministry to beg to get tests printed.
Yes, yes.
You know, and children, you have to give children adequate practice in some of these things. Repetition is important. So the thing is, you could have a conversation with the parents and say, it is going to cost me this amount to print tests.
Okay.
There might be some parents who might be say, I would assist in printing some papers for you this time.
Correct.
It should not be as a payment.
Okay.
You have a class of say 25 children, but you are charging $60 and $80.
Okay.
$60 to one subject, $80 to one subject. So a child who is weak in those two subject areas is $140.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Some parents love it and want it.
I'm going to ask a
But
question.
what about those who can't afford?
I don't know if I'm going to put you on the spot here, but how you cope with it as the representative of the teachers and as the president of the union?
Well, I answered that earlier. I say I represent teachers, but if you break the law, I am telling you, violates the code of conduct. It is unethical based on our code of conduct. Our code of conduct is clear. It says you must not charge or you must not accept tuition fees from the children that you teach.
Okay. So you consider that tuition, or the law interpret that tuition?
The Education Act is saying the same thing. It says there should be no tuition fees. Because the government is paying you to do a job.
Yeah, but no,
so
is it
what you can do? What you can do, you could do evening classes away from the school, but there might be a security issue. Some parents may not be comfortable of you doing a class away from the school.
Okay.
But remember that you are using the government facilities.
Yes.
And you never know when they will ask you to you're making.
Okay.
In your income tax.
Okay. So it's okay for a teacher to give instructional time outside of the working hours once they're not receiving any compensation in terms of payment?
Well, you could have evening classes outside of the instructional time. But what we encourage people to do, don't use the government facilities.
Okay.
Right? And the point of the matter is, what is really a matter of great concern is some of the high prices people charge.
Okay.
I am saying if you're doing extra work, you must be compensated.
Yes.
That is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're making more money than your salary, that is another issue.
Let me be the devil advocate. So if the parent willing to pay, why it should be a problem with the Ministry of Education or the
Well, you see,
yes.
In some jurisdictions,
yes,
you can't accept gifts and monies and so for the job that you are supposed to do.
Okay. But
it's part of your professionalism.
Yeah, but we don't establish that the instructional time is from quarter 2 to quarter 2. So outside that is not instructional time.
But you, who is responsible for you
yes.
or any child you conducting classes after school? Who is responsible? Anything happens, who is responsible?
Good question.
Even when we're doing classes on a Saturday, the law says you must get approval from the chief education officer.
Yeah, that is understandable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I just want to make it clear.
Yes.
We're not saying that people must go and do the work and not compensate it.
Yeah, correct.
But you have to follow the law and you could do your thing.
Correct.
But try to set up your system in such a way that you could help the children and walk it around with the parents.
Correct.
But some of the prices are really far too high.
Too ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, all the best.
Yeah, yes. That is my friend indeed. Pleasant good night.
Stay Abraham, good night.
Good night.
Yeah, Poy is there as well?
Yes, please.
Poy, good night. Mr. Abraham, I had a little incident 2 Sundays ago. And I really and truly don't want to press charges because going to court and things right now is a waste of time. So I want to make it clear to the public to understand how our police officers really treat people. Now, I am from Villa, and everyone knew my voice when I talk, and I don't speak a word in my mouth. But I could remember a couple of years ago, I was abused by a police officer without a baton in my face, right? Which you might have remembered that.
Yes.
Right. And I decided I'm not going to be bullied by any police officer again at any time, once I know I'm on my right side. So here we go, is that I went with my 2 grandchildren on the beach 2 Sundays ago. And I went to Villa Beach as usual. I had my horse with me. And the beach didn't have much people on there, but there were some people who had a little picnic. And a guy who normally go on the beach and sell his barbecue and so forth, we normally hang out and speak with and so. And there were some guys who normally sit there from Calico and other places, bring the dogs and so on the beach to bathe, but wait until the beach cool down and then drive to bathe the dogs and so. So I wanted to give my granddaughter a ride. So I went in the corner of Villa Beach, which if you go to Villa Beach, right down in the corner, there are rocks down in the corner down there, right? So I normally take my animal down in the corner side down there and bathe him in the water and bring him out. Whilst I was doing that, I heard a song, which is a stone drop very close to me, past me and dropped very close to me. It was a good sized stone, fairly enough big stone. So I looked around, I didn't see anyone. But after a while, I heard a voice calling. I said, hey, I look around, I saw this gentleman standing on the beach with a bay in his hand. And he called to me, I must take my horse, my effing horse out the water. So I looked at him and said, excuse me, my grandchild is standing there. You know, you can't be disciplined much better than that. I don't want, where do the horse, you baby a horse between people, where do be the horse up that side? So I must leave from in the corner where I am to bathe the horse up by Sunset Shores area, by Beachcombers, which is more in the open of the people. So I went in the corner with some people, Little do I know, I'm going to walk out the water now with the horse coming out because my granddaughter was standing waiting for a ride. So when I came out the water and walked up on the sand, I received base building in my face. I dashed the bay in my face, right? So I looked at him and I said, that's all you could do? I'm in the water bathing, so bay is like water to me. So I leave him there and I walked up and I went up to the ramp where the guys were with the barbecue and the bar, it was the icebox selling. And I was standing there. There was a gentleman from Pause that was standing there talking with us. So I was telling the guys what happening down there. You know, this guy's going to leave the corner now from the group where he's in and come up again, stand up on the ramp and throw the bay in my face again. Right? So one of the guys say, why you do that? Why you come and throw the bay in my face again? So I stand up to him, I pull the bay out his hand, and I throw the bay in his face again. I say, well, you throw bay in my face so I could throw your bay back in your face, brother. And he squared up to me. So I went down and I picked 2 stones up in my hand. And I said, this is not going to happen. So a young lady turned to me and said, were you going to hit him? You know, he's a police. I said, police? So then he looked at me. So I walk up and said, well, hey, no police like you ain't hitting me and get away again. You hit me, you throw me in my face, I throw back in your face. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back, straight. 2 other police officers, 2 other guys came now. One hold on to me, say, yo, I know your daughter was work at such and such. Cool out. We are police officers. I say, you're police officers. Why you didn't talk to him from the day one when he came down there? I didn't do him anything. He's telling me to take my horse off the beach. He didn't give me strength to bring a horse to the beach. He can't tell me that. So he came back up again and wanted to fight with me again. So I said, guy, if you hit me this time, I tell you if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. So the same time I walked and moved the horse tight, a young lady called me who know me and said, Charles, I know this police officer name. And she gave me his name, which I could say his name because
don't say his name. What you should have done is gone public relation and make a complaint.
I know, Mr. Abraham, I did that.
Okay.
But my thing is, they asked me if I'm going to press charges. I tell them straight off. I said, I rather not press charges. I rather make the public aware of what is happening. If it's my conscience and if I feel better doing this, I'm not going to press charges because I know what it's going to take for me to do that. I say I will go public and call his name, and I will go public and speak, because if he wants to take action now of me calling his name, he could do that. He could do that because these police officers, and he was drinking, he was under alcohol, and he works in the special unit, and he drinks alcohol, and he was drunk. And coming on the beach with your group and your police officers.
Yeah, you can't determine he was drunk, but
he had a bottle before, was drinking, and then he came to me with the beer because they all were drinking. They had alcohol drinking. I would not say they was drinking alcohol when they were not. I know as a fact they were drinking alcohol because they were picnicking and they were doing the thing, right? But I want him to know, and if he's listening, and anyone who's close to him listening, I want people to know, because I'm not going to keep it hush, because these guys have a way. They could come back and want to give you a heart talk when you call the name and so forth. I'm not going to sit down and allow this to happen. And people must be aware of these officers, because they know they're in the law and they know that they are police officers. They feel they could walk around and do people things as they like. And this is something that the officer who is in charge of these guys on special unit or whoever, whenever they come out, these guys must take and speak to these guys and have them with caution when they go out there with people. Because the same person, some of the people who tell me about this guy who know him very well, they said he's a person who drinks and that's his way of operating. This is what he always do when he go out and picnic and drinking, getting involved with people. So I want to make it known. I ain't afraid to talk. I don't speak with water in my mouth. And I am not taking any stupidness from the police officers who approach me in the wrong way. He didn't even say to me he's a police officer. None of them said they're a police officer until I take up this one and say, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you, I'll hit you. The woman jump up, who's a police? That is how now I go in and know they are police officers. And when I call his name, when the lady give me his name and I call his name, he sit down and he didn't say nothing else. Because he was very surprised to know that I found out his name so quickly.
Okay.
You know? So
keep on the right side of the law. And I will.
Yeah, this is just a message for them to know that I am gonna speak out. I'm not gonna hold it hush hush because doing this, these police officers get away too much. And I want for the officers, because his name is there. I hope they're gonna caution him. I hope they're gonna speak to him. And whosoever police is in charge, knowing and hearing my voice, knowing that I make this report, I would like for them to call him with his group that he was there with, and caution them and tell them when they're going out in the public to do their picnicking or wherever, they have to go as people who represent the law and within the law, and is there to serve with people and protect people, not to brutalize people. Because this is why one of the reasons why people will not cooperate with police officers, because they don't know how to go around with people and approaching people. Their behavior is very not much good enough for the public in that way.
All right, thank you.
And I am not. Yeah, I am not hiding my voice to speak out. I am glad for you to allow me to speak and let your voice be it, because this is not going to happen to me a second time.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing
No
what I have to say.
problem.
Good. Have a
Well, I have. Okay, let me hope there's a police call to help out. Pleasant good night.
Good night, Brother Abraham.
Hey, good night.
You know, let me tell you, I don't Poyer there because I didn't listen to the.
Yeah, Poyer is here.
Greetings, Brother Poyer. I have my phone in front of me to read, but I said I had to call you to tell you something very significant. I was very disappointed in the presentation by the union man. And, you know, for me, if he might say to you that, you know, I'm after him, no, I've given him the most support. You mean to tell me the union person don't understand the gravity of what is happening with rule of law? Does the union man understand that under Ralph Gonsalves administration, there's absolutely no rule of law? I mean, you're talking these very big, but look at these very fundamentals coming even from the union. No chalk, no toilet paper in a school. Doesn't the union man understand what is happening? That this situation is 25 years and will go on for another 50 years unless we change our direction? And this is why I call. Because you have to understand, why is he not calling for the resignation of the Minister of Education? I mean, Abraham, this ain't no time to question. This is a reality that we've seen. We never saw a country so close to Hamas, so close to Cuba, so close to Venezuela. I mean, I am 63 years old, Abraham, and you hear me every day. Thank God for being to allow me to speak. That we have a situation where you have a dictator, not no government. Abraham, do you know what is a government and what is a? Have you seen? I'm sure you would have been around for Joshua. Did you see Joshua treat us like that? Look, we just get a little piece here. I didn't call to speak one for the thing, you know, but I just want to just mention. Look in front of me here. 2015, 1,531 schools drop out in 4 years. Why have you not updated us, Mr. So-called union man? 1,531 students drop out of school between 2009 to 2013. 235 of them were primary school students. 1,296 of them were secondary school students. 33 students quit school without completing a first year of primary school education. 224 students quit secondary school without finishing their first year. And that was between 2009. What has happened in 2014? It has gotten worse. Abraham in Annisvale, here where I live, I could come to me, look for me above Renton Drive, and I'll carry you to children rotate to go to school. Why, Abraham? What is really going on? I mean, you hear him talking about evening class. Abraham, we can't even buy a coconut cake. Abraham, you understand what is happening? Just recently, union man, me not hearing you talking about it. How could you sit down and be part of looking at the hard-working civil service? Civil servants, teachers, nurses. Well, I think nurses had some different arrangement than some other statutory bodies. But how could you tell me that these hard-working people who run the country, not the politicians, not the NDP and ULP politicians run it, it's the hard-working civil servants, the engine of the civil service, and the police and the other teachers and so on that run our country. But look at what you do them. Get them 2.5%. Agreed with a union and take back 6%. So who got $1,000? I don't know every year you calculate the figure. You got $1,000, you get $25 on your pay. But $60 come out. You get $2,000. You get $50. 120 come out and so forth. This is what we come to. 130,000 to the Governor General, 108 to the opposition leader, 160 to Dr. Gonsalves, 95,000 to the Speaker of the House, and I'm not even talking allowances to that. What are these monies for? Lucrative contract to the tune of $8 million, and you have people on a radio program every day playing party politics while our hard-working teachers are there. I mean, I'm hearing the union man speaking about that. Run down schools, and the one are coming to now. Abraham, just a few days ago, last week, they had a very serious session in the Senate. And the Senate discussed the very gravity. Thank God to Dr. McCullough. You hear maybe a few persons speak about Dr. McCullough, maybe Frank De Silva, I think my dad and Alicia would have raised his name. I'm sure you know what I'm speaking about. This is you can't say, well, when Hamilton speaks, this is a doctor that helped me through this very situation of why there's a vaccine, why these vaccines are dangerous, and why when it was Trump, Biden, Gonzalez, the Dominica Prime Minister, the Taiwan Prime Minister, Israel gave these vaccines out. It is clearly equates to genocide and murder, because coming from that, the findings concur with the very early findings that the vaccines are killing and the vaccines are hurting a tremendous amount of people. And so new findings now show these ain't no guesswork thing, because after that presentation, JFK Jr. basically under a new mandate from Donald Trump, and God bless you, Donald Trump, basically just days after, made sure again that no person, young person, no pregnant mother, of course, we know for sure that all of the other vaccines have been banned. The original vaccines have been banned. You're not going to hear from anybody else in the Ministry of Health other than crazy about Hamilton, They have banned those vaccines, original monovalent vaccines, Moderna, AstraZeneca, J&J, viral vaccines. Every one of them has banned. AstraZeneca admitted in quotes that the vaccine causing blood clots. Those are banned. And so you know what they did, Abraham? After they ban them, more experimental, more genocide on people by putting vaccines, trying new Moderna and and Pfizer vaccine with the BA4, BA5. Only tried on 8 mice. You know, hear talk about that? Well, how could you give vaccines? And then when they brought in these monovalent BA4, BA5, they failed. Because we had a thing called imprinting. They had they say no doctor, but I've done my research. These vaccines are so dangerous. So what they do, they put in BA4, BA5. American BA4, BA5. And you know what happened, Abraham? We had a thing called imprinting. These vaccines were producing, the body was producing the original strain and not the BA4, BA5 to fight the vaccine. But these vaccines continue to hurt people, to call them myocarditis, pericarditis. And let me get it clear from very early when I spoke and when we spoke about the dangers of the vaccine. You know, Abraham, you put a vaccine in your hand. You're going to hear Thompson calling and none of them local doctors call, but the only person we call is Dr. Goodluck and Dr. Murray. You put a vaccine in her, you put it in your muscle, your deltoid. That vaccine stays, Abraham, and within a week or so, the white blood cell will clean it up. You know, particles from the vaccine, the lipid in that very messenger RNA vaccine, the particles of that vaccine traverse very early. We had very early findings from a Japanese study. Traverse in the bloodstream. You don't want your vaccine in your bloodstream. And it was going to different parts. One of them was the bone marrow. The second part, highest concentration in woman ovaries. From that session last week, which none of the health people, no union man, no NDP followed. We found out in that session, no comments, no misinformation. 60% of the very early trials, the mice, female mice, got the ovaries damaged. Abraham, why you think so many persons in St. Vincent across the world bleeding? Abraham, you think I'll come on here to talk Spanish or fooling people? From that presentation, also we discovered the very devastation of damage to the young people inner and outer chamber of the heart, which we found out even in the very first SARS-1 trials. And then figures were branded about by all concurring with all of the young hair from the Chief Medical Officer Ralph Gonsalves and no NDP, because they got themselves union in trouble in the beginning by saying safe and effective. This crazy man said, how could a vaccine be safe and effective when you didn't do that very vital phase 3 are boasting about taking Sputnik V. And you have a union man telling me about chalk and this and that and terror and not understanding that they're two very dangerous situations. One, my brother, I am disappointed in you that you allow the unions to make you go back to work when Mr. Gonsalves should have been charged. I am going to tell you something, Abraham, coming from that trial. One last thing. You know, it is very significant. From that discussion, in the Senate, the highest parliament in the land in America, God bless you, Donald Trump. You know, it was clear that the COVID vaccine virus continues to mutate at such a rapid pace. And I have all the new variants here to show you quickly so that you could understand that why beat on the ball. Why we need to have a discussion, a proper discussion. Let me just give you them quickly. So we have gone from BA4, BA5, and we have now gone to new variants. And let me give you them quickly. MC.1, these are no float variant, they're no more American, they're different strains, far more infectious. LB.1, 3.1, LF7. We also have KP3.1, XCC, MC.1, new variants. Of course, these variants, are mutating from the COVID, and they're far more infectious. And the most infectious are the ones who dominate, and the weaker ones will die out. And so we have now here the MC1 for this year, .1.10. I mean, look, these are new additional strains as they mutate. It's a dangerous sign. This is why they came from a lab in America. There's no naturalness about these virus. LB.1.3.1, LF7, with LP.8.1, with 70% of the cases in America. This is where we have to look at. This is where they do all the work. We don't do one study, one here to see what is happening to our people. All they do, they hide it up, and they block you out in NBC and all the other radio stations, including Nice Radio. 70%. XFC 9% of cases. XCC 6%. All of these viruses, these are far more infectious. And let me talk about how infectious the COVID vaccine is finally. Because you see, Abraham, what is happening here is a cover-up. And what has happened is that our unions, our politicians, I warned Dr. Friday, I said, Dr. Friday, have given support. Nobody have to ask you who Hamilton vote for, because it's a secret. I am proud to give you that opportunity because you said they were going to be better than, and you said you hear how people are traitor to Dr. Friday. Ebola under this, so you have a number of people and one sick person can infect on an average is called R0. This is infectivity of a virus. Ebola was just R0-2. Dengue R0-1. COVID-19 original strain R0-3. And this is coming from Leuven, Belgium, a very powerful university. So I ain't talking any comedy thing. COVID-19 Delta variant, that was an original variant. R0-7, chickenpox R0-10, COVID-19 American BA R0-10, COVID-19 American BA2 R0-12, mumps R0-12, measles R0-12, COVID-19 American R0-20, and XBB, another strain that came eventually, R0-25. These variants are very infectious. Coming from that session, that the COVID virus is floating very much, and they have seen upsurge in cases in the United States of America. And we have upsurges here, but they're hiding it up. But here the catch to that. You know why we are having serious problems with an upsurge? Because if it was a good vaccine, like we had with tetanus shot and polio and all the other vaccines, viral vaccines that went through a rigorous process, a 7-year period to make sure that they're safe and effective, then we would not have had this problem. But what happened is that when they try these Congo snake vaccine, totally ineffective because they cannot work. I'm talking with authority here. Nobody could touch me on these because I go through them with Dr. Murray. What happened when they tried Pfizer, 2 shots, shot 1, shot 2? When they tried them, it didn't work. So they went three shots. the World Health Organization head chief scientist, Dr. Swaminathan, said, for God's sake, don't put a third shot because you're going to damage the immune system. It will not work. And so said, so done. And they went with a fourth booster shot. And when they got a fourth booster shot, who first tried it was Israel. When they tried it, Abraham, in 2 weeks, the vaccines went to 10% in just 2 weeks. By 6 weeks, it's gone to nothing. None of these vaccines are significant. Why, for God's sake, did Ralph Gonsalves say he took 5 shots? He could not have possibly taken 5 shots because that is not how vaccines have worked. And then Sputnik V is what he took. And he was going to take a more booster of either 2 Pfizer and add 1 to make a booster shot, making it, as he said, you don't play around with people's lives. My brother and so many of us, and I think you too, didn't take a vaccine. Why we didn't take it? Because we saw the very early stats. After 3 months, 278 persons died from the CDC document. I could go on and on and on and on, but I'm not going to get anywhere because all of them, including Trump, who played the game with people's lives, and then it came forward from moderators after moderators, radio stations after radio stations, TV stations, politicians who lined up for their millions with people's lives, and then had the audacity, encouraged by the unions and Dr. Friday and the NDP, and encourage a mandate. It is a game. Let me tell you something, Abraham. We're wasting time. Our young people, our citizens, 27,000 of them, even though they didn't take a second shot, 27,000 of them, and possibly more, because I understand young children was given these vaccines. Their life is in danger based on that coming from Dr. McCullough, because these vaccines that has damaged the immune system. And so, could you imagine, 80% of the American population took them vaccines, 67% took a booster shot.
Thanks for your contribution.
God bless you,
yeah, you
for your educational program.
Yeah,
Love you very
thank
much,
you.
and Brother Poyer.
All
Love you all
right.
very
Have
much.
a good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Right, that'll be the last caller too. Father Abraham, when my family and I visit St. Vincent, we will normally swim at the Villa Beach. On many occasions, we will see the guy with his horse, and he always have them in a secure area. I have never seen him taking the horse into the water. Maybe he used his judgment and look for a time when the beach is not full in use. I don't know what will cause the police officer to behave in that manner. They have to remember they are there to serve and to protect, and failing to work along with the people will limit their chance of fighting crime, because they will always need the help of the people. Plus, presenting evidence under the influence may not be acceptable in court. I don't want to touch on that. I will touch on it tonight. I have, based on the information that was given, I think the police officer ought to identify himself if he believed that the guy was doing something wrong or in breach of any law. You don't do those things if what he said is correct. You have to conduct yourself in a proper manner as a police officer. And I have some issue with that, but I will do a little more thing first before I get involved in that issue. In all fairness to my friend Oswald, I think he cannot be blamed. What he does, he highlights the issue, and I don't think he represents an organization, which is the union, and he cannot come out and do or say anything without the authorization of the union. It's an organization, it's an institution, and he have an executive, and the executive is the one and the membership. First, you go to the executive and then the membership, and you take instruction from your membership. So therefore, and he's the one who I saw highlighted some of the issues with the toilet paper and other things. So I don't think it is 100% fair to indicate that he's not doing nothing. That is all he can do, is highlight and make representation on behalf of the school and the teachers, and there's nothing more he can do. And I can call for the resignation of of Curtis King. I am an individual doing a program. He represents an organization, and therefore he will have to get the backing of his organization to do the thing. Hamilton can do the same thing. He could call on anybody to tender a resignation. Poya can do anything, but when you represent an organization, it's a whole new kettle of fish. And I can tell you that because I served in organization way back, and therefore you not at liberty like Poya, Hamilton, and myself to do and say what you want at all times. So Poya, we have about 5 more minutes, and I was told that the 10th will be tomorrow night and not tonight. And Poya, go ahead.
Well, the education aspect that came out tonight was very interesting.
We need to continue that because I have a lot of questions. Sorry.
And I think these are the sort of things that we need to get the public involved in so that we can make changes that is pertinent and to save our children.
Poya, hear my concern. I know in the holidays, I don't know if it still happens. You have principal meeting where all the principal of the school meet with the ministry. And therefore, the principal have an obligation to represent their school in putting forward those things to the ministry when they meet with the ministry. And if the principal are failing to do that, then the principal need to be removed because they have a responsibility. If they know those things are going on in the school, boy, and you have a meeting, the principals have meeting every, I don't know if it's once per month or when, but they used to have meeting. I don't know if that still happens. They have an obligation to put forward those issues to the minister and the ministry, right? And if they're failing to do that, then something had to wrong with the whole system, right?
Yeah.
Because if teachers could call, former principal, individuals could call and indicating what is happening in the system, the minister ought to know, the ministry ought to know, the parents ought to know, and the parents have a responsibility to at the PTA to raise those issues.
The PTA these days is not functioning.
Okay.
The vast majority of the schools.
Okay.
All they like yourself is just some barbecue and other things like that. But other important aspects as what was saying, they're not involved.
Okay.
And that is
who not involved? The principal or the parents?
The parents.
Okay.
They may just come to a meeting and that's about it. They need to discuss the issues on a regular basis.
But in meeting point, you have a timetable. Who do up the agenda? Who do up the agenda? Because the agenda must be done up by somebody. And if you have an
Which
agenda,
one the meeting you talking about?
The PTA, yes. Any meeting they go have to have
the
agenda.
PTA meeting is the agenda is done up by the president and the secretary, I think.
Exactly. So therefore, they the one should raise the issues, and then other parents hopefully will join in. If not, they raise the issue still, and they shouldn't be afraid. Right?
It's not you will hardly find that coming. You might find that coming from somebody like me who would ask pertinent question.
Okay. But it makes sense. It don't make any sense to have the meeting. If you go into the meeting and you're wasting time.
More person, like you might more deal with issues that like bullying and those sort of things.
Okay.
But the other major aspect about the pedagogy and those aspects, because you don't know about it.
But what I'm saying, if somebody raised the issue and put it forward in a way that other parents could understand, I think you will have contribution from other parents. So the problem is that maybe we're not raising the issue in a way that everybody can understand who in the meeting. Maybe that is the problem. So
what will happen? Some people will say, "Oh, you ain't fed up talk," and them sort of things. And the thing about it is that the thing is so pertinent and important.
We're out of time, eh? So next week we will continue on some of these issues.
Sunday is Pentecostal Sunday. So
until next week, we have a wonderful evening.
Look at them right there. Look at
hold me, hold me, hold me. Hold me, mind, body, and soul. Have me under control. Girl, your waistline, hold me, hold me, hold me.